Hi, it is Tootie Tagerly coming to you Tuesday at about 1:30 p.m. Pacific time from San Francisco, California. In the United States, it's Thanksgiving week. And while the history of what's been done to the indigenous people for Thanksgiving is not great, a lot of hurt and hatred and appropriation and killing. I do want to acknowledge that it is a time of community and connection and bonding over meals for many people in the United States. And with that, I thought it was appropriate to share a little bit about something that research has shown us really is something that most joyful people do, gives us more energy and also provides a mindset shift towards more positivity, which is a gratitude practice for leaders. And this is one of the items and practices that I and many of my clients have the most trouble with. You see, the research does show that gratitude, along with meditation, are things that help us and help with this mindset shift. But yet, it's something that's so hard for us to do and put into practice. It's hard because maybe it's not that much fun. There's a lot of repetition and muscle buildup associated with it, so it's hard to start and it's hard to sustain. Um, so I wanted to share 2 categories of things. One is the how do you make it more interesting? How do you think about different things or facets of your life to be grateful for? And the second is how do you actually put this into practice and sustain it? So pretty simple, actually. And this is things that I've heard from trial and error or doing it with different people. When you're doing a gratitude practice, could be daily, it could be weekly. I wouldn't make it further than that. And I think daily is the best. Consider making it a little bit more specific. So here's 3 ways to make it specific. At the end of each day, rather than being grateful for something maybe a little bit more generic, like a sunset or your children, in the context of each day, think about who's a person or people who I appreciate the most today. Um, for me, I took my car into my mechanic, my regular long-term mechanic this morning, and I really appreciate Robert. Uh, got an oil change. He told me that my brakes were at 30% and I needed to do it next time. And he also found a problem from him in that a compressor that he installed was malfunctioning, but he's going to address it and fix it. So that is something very specific that I'm grateful for today. A second way to make it specific, in addition to being grateful for a person, is to think about as you reflect back on your day or your last 24 hours, what is a peak emotional experience that you can think of? What had you laughing or feeling proud or feeling like very creative? And I'll start with the positives because it's easier to access. For me, I spent some time binge watching Ted Lasso and just laughed and laughed and laughed at some of the kind of ridiculous dad humor, but also some of the twists in that. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the laughter. I'm grateful for sharing it with my partner and watching it together. And then finally, a third thing to think about in terms of variety and specificity of a gratitude practice is what is one thing that you did for yourself over the last day, 24 hours, week that you're proud of. And thinking about that in the context of a time period helps make it less generic. For me, I'm working on a collaborative art project with my daughter, and I'm really proud that I took 10-15 minutes this morning to paint the little figures of the Kodama dolls, little forest spirits that we're putting into this art project. And something I did for me, because I needed to do something with my hands, and something that I did for my daughter, so that when she comes back home again, she'll see that that part of it is done. So that's 3 ways to make a gratitude practice more specific, which I think personally makes it more interesting. Think about the person you might appreciate the most today, a peak emotional experience, and also something that you did for yourself that you're proud of. So the second part of this is how to actually make this stick. And this is not rocket science, but I have 2 thoughts on it. One, establish a regular routine. Perhaps it's the last thing you do before you go to bed at night. Pick up your journal and write it down, or think about it. Perhaps as you go into bed, when your head touches the pillow, you're like, all right, what am I grateful for today? Who's the person? What's a peak emotional experience? And what's something that I did for myself? Or maybe it's first thing in the morning. Or maybe it's something that you establish and tie with like brushing your teeth. What do you really think about when you're brushing your teeth? Maybe not much. Maybe that's tied to the gratitude routine. A second way to do this is to find an accountability partner to share this with. For, I would say, many years, my daughter, who I think was 7 or 8 at the time, we did that as part of our bedtime routine. And I can be a little competitive, and she did too. And one of the ways we made it really interesting is we traded off. We thought of as many things to be grateful for in the day as possible, and we traded off until we were done. And that made it a fun ritual with an accountability partner. All right, that is it. Research shows having a regular gratitude practice is helpful. It can be so hard to do, so hard to get started, so hard to keep interesting, and so hard to maintain it. So, wanted to remind people for this Thanksgiving week that when you're doing a gratitude practice, think about the person who you appreciate the most in this period, a peak emotional experience, and something that you did for yourself. And two ideas to make sure this sticks: establish a regular routine, either daily, which I recommend, or weekly, but I think daily is better, it's more regular, or find an accountability partner. All right, that's it for this week. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I'll see you next week. Bye.